That's what we're saying Jew is, like a microcosm of humanity.
If you want to go down this rabbit hole, go ahead.
We're fighting the same battles that we fought in the very beginning.
The anti-Semites and us have a similar story.
How can they not?
We're saying, yes, let's start with that premise, say we're all different.
Why have you decided that unity is the thing that Jews need to do to help the world?
She's an attorney, specializes in domestic violence.
But what made you want to be on Team Jew?
Nicole Levitt, please join us.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
So I always had this search for truth. It was, when I got to be in college, it was maybe a little bit a search against postmodernism. Everybody having their own truth. Everything can be true at the same time. And I was always like, no, there is a truth. There is something that's real in this world. It's not only what you decide it's going to be.
Sounds very Jewy.
It is. I've always been Jewy. And I did have Jewish relatives and Jewish boyfriends before that. I had a lot of
an affinity to lox and bagel,
I actually like the Moroccan fish better.
Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one, yes.
Growing up in New Orleans, I'm very partial to spicy food. So.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So I just learned about it, and I learned about other religions too, like Buddhism, Eastern religions, and meditation. But I was always drawn to Judaism, and it took a very long time to convert. I would say from the time I started the process officially till the end was at least 2 years, but I was learning before that just at my own pace, which was fine with me. And, at the end, I decided to go to Israel, and everything had worked out in my life so that it was the perfect time for me to go to Israel.
But hold on, before Israel, people in your family, people all around you, were they like, all right, see you later?
Did your grandmother actually pull you aside and say, we used to light candles in the back room and nobody knew why,
No, it was actually a great grandmother. So 3 greats that was Jewish. Yeah.
Very great.
But my mother said, okay, if you go talk to this priest that she had picked out and you still want to do it after that, I will not say anything. So I was like, okay.
And your dad?
My dad was more quiet about it. He let my mom do the talking.
Okay, so I'm curious. I'm curious about that conversation. You go to see this priest.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What's going on there? What is he painting a picture of reality? How?
No, he was actually, he knew a lot about Judaism. It was very funny, and he seemed to have an affinity for the Jews. And so, we discussed why I was converting, why I didn't believe in Christianity. And I guess it was maybe a 2-hour long conversation. We really did get into a good conversation. And at the end of it, he told my mother, she knows what she's doing. It's very good, and it's going to be good. You're okay. And my mother was fine.
You're staying in the family, because it's like, it's one step removed. It's not like, if it was Buddhism, maybe that would have been difficult for them, or, shamanism, that would be like, okay. So
you had a situation where your employer separated people by race or something like that.
Yeah. So after George Floyd was killed, that I think was one moment where something happened with the collective unconscious, and everyone got, I'd say, a little hysterical about race and issues of race in this country. And my employer was no different. Maybe they were on the vanguard of that. I don't know. But they set up affinity groups that were based on race. So there was the Black affinity group and the white affinity group. And I mean, we were kind of placed into those groups and forced to discuss issues of race from the anti-racist standpoint, the Kendi and D'Angelo, where everything that's white is the problem, and if you're Black, you're oppressed, you've been held down, you're probably poor. And I don't think it helps.
Isn't that condescending to Blacks? I'm sorry.
Well, exactly. Yes, exactly.
What kind of message it sends to young Black kids? Hey, you're poor and you're downtrodden and you should feel terrible.
So there are a lot of Black thinkers and writers who have written about that in the past 2 years. It's very condescending. It's very disempowering. It's a very disempowering message for everyone, because they call it the work. You have to do the work. The work is never done. So if you're white or even white adjacent, which they've kind of lumped Asians into and some Hispanics, then you have to do this work of self-flagellation. And not did racism occur in that exchange that you just had with a person of color, but where did racism occur? Because we can guarantee you that it did. That is their premise. So we were being given trainings with that ideology. And for me, it culminated, I didn't like it at all. And I finally said, I'm not going to these meetings. I'm not going to be lumped in a race that you choose. And by the way, Jews don't fit into this binary, Black or white.
Jews don't fit anywhere, that we found out.
Yeah, right.
Found that out many years ago.
Right. And then, so that was fine for a few months. I just didn't do it. But we were bombarded with these messages daily because it really took over. And finally, I was asked to sign a contract, and it was called a full value contract. It was something about how you would govern your behavior at work. And one of the items was, own that all white people are racist and I am not the exception. And then I just said, no.
Wow.
I'm not signing it. I'm not.
It's like saying it's like saying all men are rapists,
Yeah, well, yes. That might be the next thing. I don't know. But wow. So I refused. And then I had to attend a meeting with the DEI director, which I can only characterize as a struggle session with her trying to change my thoughts on these issues. It was a very big, unpleasant debate. And, that was when I said, okay, I've had enough. And I filed an EEOC complaint. And that's where it is now, because this kind of stuff does violate existing law.
So I
think I'm sorry, Seth. I think it violates like something deep inside of us, and that should be that should raise a flag. When things start to encroach on our very being, something is not right in how it's done.
That's exactly right.
So there was something that happened in the culture that, using the language from the intro just now, wasn't able to be absorbed correctly. Something, let's not even name what that pulse was that entered, but some strong pulse entered. And then you have these very kind of corrupted forms that somebody makes to try to, like, for example, you have a counter full of cookie dough, and then someone tries to put these strange forms on them, which is this, like, you're white, you're Black, you have to be separate, you have to. But when it comes to, if we use that same form that they tried to put on it to anti-Semitism, meaning like, we're Jews, you're not, you're the problem, we were on it, because our thing here is not about race, and you said Jews would have a hard time dealing with Jews because they're every shade of everything. Yeah. But if we were to apply that same thing to anti-Semitism, we see that we're constantly saying, let's look at the issue. Let's look at what's going on here. And when we say maybe us Jews have have some responsibility to take in this thing. Other Jews tell us that, tell Leo and I, that we're being, we're anti-Semitic, or
some, not all of them, some.
But I guess what they say, they call like victim blaming or something like that. Yeah, they say you need to deal with the oppressor, and it's similar to what you're saying here. I mean, that's how we see it, although it seems different if you were to talk to people. It's kind of more accepted around race than it is around anti-Semitism. But within anti-Semitism, we're actually we're not as concerned with the oppressor, so to speak, as we are with our own role in what we can do about this situation.
But it's like, no, sorry, go ahead, Nicole. You go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that's a healthy way to address a lot of these issues, not in taking on the mantlehood of a victim, but sort of taking responsibility as far as you can and saying, what can I do to address this situation? That's the empowering way to deal with it.
Right. And more than that, I will say even something more radical. Instead of making, because someone feels bad, you're going to deal with it by making someone else feels bad. We're saying, no, we need to introduce more love into the system. We need to introduce more care, more of this camaraderie, more of this, hey guys, we're all in it together kind of thing. This is not this guy versus this guy, because one day it's a white person against a black person. Tomorrow it's like it's a black man against a white woman. Tomorrow it's going to be a rich black this guy against it's
yeah.
You're not going to be able to separate all the different binaries that are going to clash. You're always going to have this, and we're saying we need to rise above these differences, whatever they may be, and you'll find a million of them. Because as we're different, guess what? It's not going to be just black versus white. It's going to be 8 billion different points, each one different than the other. If you want to go down this rabbit hole, go ahead. It's not going to end with color or race or gender or anything. It's going to be your whole being is different than everyone else. And we're saying, yes, let's start with that premise. Say we're all different. We're all egoists. Given the opportunity, we're all going to exploit one another. That's what we have been doing throughout history. That's human nature. Let's start addressing the real issue, which is this aspect of our nature, and see how can we work with that. How can we rise above that quality that's been separating us in a million ways? Let's face it. Today it's race, tomorrow it's gender, another day it's money, then it's land, then it's resources, then whatever. It's not going to end ever.
You're right. That's been the story from the beginning.
Yeah.
When you feel anti-Semitism, or when you felt it then, you feel it like in the gut, like, wow, that's against me, right?
Yeah.
Like somehow it becomes your thing that, it's very interesting.
Which reaffirms what we're saying, that it is a feeling, it's all feelings at the end of the day. It's not a matter of, that's why, and that's what we're trying to say, just in exactly the same way that you felt that void, and now you feel that hate against you, and nobody can take it away from you. No one can explain it away from you. You feel it. I bet that the other person who hates, they also feel it.
How can they not?
Exactly. No, that's my point. It's not like, oh, you should change your mind, And it's the same, by the way, with every kind of relationship that people have. People feel something first, then they apply a story on it, then society kind of distorts it and all that. But it's a feeling. So and that's our premise. They feel it. They can't resist it. I'm sure maybe some of them don't even want to feel it. Like I spoke to some people who said, I don't want to hate this group of people, but I really feel strongly that somehow my destiny, my ability to live a good life is somehow related to them. It's like it's that kind of, and so let's address that. We won't be able to sue everyone who hates the Jews or says that's not a solution.
Mm-hmm.
You have all these watchdogs and all these organizations. They're gonna keeping an eye on biased media and this.
Hey, it might keep the lawyers busy.
Yeah, no, for sure. The lawyers are going to do good, but but beyond that, we if that's how they feel, then let me see what can we do with this feeling. How can we work with the feelings? That I think is what scares people, feelings.
Well, definitely. And back to what you were both saying before, the energy and the feeling. So when you have that feeling and this burst of energy that you don't know what to do with, and then it becomes channeled into hate, it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, that our premise now, Leo. You said something. I wish I could make it into a T-shirt or something. I don't. It was like a 3-step thing. You said they have a feeling, then they something, and then society kind of puts a narrative around that feeling. The feeling is here. Our premise is that well, we're not really blaming anti-Semites. We actually think that at the core, if we could take away a lot of the story, the anti-Semites and us have a similar story. The Jews have some purpose. We're not really doing it. They're subconsciously upset about it or expecting something from us. And we are maybe like a teenager who doesn't want to deal with the responsibility of having to get up for work, for the first time. We just don't, or we just don't, I say something to my teenager. He's like, no, they don't care about it. It's not they don't care. He just doesn't feel the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if I make my bed. It doesn't matter. Teacher doesn't care. It's just, he doesn't feel the importance of those things. I think as Jews, we just don't feel the importance of that.
Well,
yeah,
it's just homework.
Yeah, but when you don't see, our brain cannot, we're very, our brain is very linear. You can see 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. As soon as things get exponential, as soon as things get like out of your, like around the core, you can't imagine that they're there. Like you can't even. No, it can be, right? Because, and so when we talk to Jews and even some anti-Semites, we say, could it be that just like any other part of nature, we have some purpose, and it's something has something to do with human relations, with humanity, with how people relate to each other. It's not like some outlandish. I mean, it's outlandish, but it's not like out of this world. It may be. But people really have a gut reaction like, no, I don't want to be different. I don't want to have a responsibility. Why can't we just be, I'm a person, you're a person, let's just get along and end it. And we're saying, well, clearly it's not working. So saying it won't make it so. Maybe go to the bottom of it and try to find our respective functions in humanity. Just like every cell in the body has a role. There's no like cells that are
this is what's different about what we were talking about before, and what makes it confusing, because before we were saying, no, let's not separate everyone into whites and blacks, for example, in the workplace or something. But now we're saying, hold on, but there is something unique about the different groups or something.
There's a uniqueness, but it's not necessarily color based. It's an internal ideological thing, meaning it's a quality that relates you to the rest of the system. And your color, your gender, your money, all that, those things, they have some relation to nature. Like, meaning even those things play a role, I believe. Like, I believe as humanity develops, right, some group play the role of oppressor, meaning some group had to play a role of oppressed. Then one group had to play a role of conqueror. One group had to play the role of conquered. Right? One has to be this, one has to be that. There's a constant ebb and flow if you look throughout humanity. And we think that people just kind of were from from living in caves to where we are today. The brain cannot fathom that there were periods in history where people actually preferred to be enslaved to someone, for example. Like where, in the Middle Ages, when you were attached to serfs, right? Someone owned the land and you belonged to them. That was your ticket to a good life. It was tough, but it was better than just being somewhere outside, out in the woods and being picked on by the bandits and all that. This was actually a good. You had a bed, you had a roof over your head, you had food. It was a tough life, but that's the life you had. Meaning, we very hard for us to kind of accept that there's all these changing roles in society as we all evolve and mature, right? Just like in our inside of us. So that's what we're saying, that maybe there is something like that. Maybe some people have to play the role of the glue in society, and Jews can choose to do that or choose not to.
And why have you decided that unity is the thing that Jews need to do to help the world?
So we talk about it a lot. I think, Seth, we can we can bring like a historic explanation. We can bring a explanation based on Jewish texts, and we can bring explanation based on network science, and we can bring just one that's just based on feeling. We can do all four. I think, well, to start us off, when you read Jewish texts, they talk about the word Jew, Yehudi, which comes from the word
Well,
Yichud.
let's not make it hocus pocus or
Okay.
requiring any kind of like ancient anything. No, really, although that's where it all comes from, I guess you could say, because what we're talking about is thousands of years old.
Right,
But
in the making, not just old.
in the same way that, for example, the entire planet was not covered in plants in a day, and the entire planet was not covered in animals in a day, we see a progression, and we see that nature is moving to more and more organized and advanced forms. That's just the way that nature itself is going. And then through the process of doing this podcast on this book, we saw that there is this vanguard of humanity. You said it's not color-based. It's not really race-based. In fact, when the Jewish people came together with Abraham in Babylon back there a couple thousand years ago, it wasn't all Abraham's seed. It wasn't all one family. It was all these different people,
representatives,
coming together. It was like a nation. It's not like French people who came from France or Spanish people who come from Spain. It was like a people, a nation made from an idea, like these different people coming together. So our concept here, and what would be great after time, and if we could get all of our guests together, we'll see at some point fat ones, skinny ones, women ones, men ones, black ones, red ones, purple ones, because that's what we're saying Jew is, that it's this group that is the like a microcosm of humanity. And we're saying that this is what nature's doing anyway, is moving us together. And if we can now consciously do that as a group, it will serve as a light. I don't want to go back to the hocus pocus book, but like a light to the nations kind of thing. It will be an example, because it used to, as a teenager, really pissed me off that when I realized everyone's like a sheep, everyone's just doing whatever they're told. And then as I got older, I was like, damn, if only there was like now I got to say, more hocus pocus crap. If there was like a good shepherd to lead the sheep, if only there was a good idea. It's not a problem that everyone will just do what the advertisers tell us to do. If only there was some good advertisement, then we would all just do the good thing.
Except the good thing is harder, and human nature generally goes towards what's easier.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, but holocausts are hard too. Pogroms are hard too.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. But as we know, I don't know how old are your kids, but
they're teenagers. Okay,
so I mean, raising a kid is all about doing what's hard. It's there's this great doctor. She's talking about raising kids according to the Adler method. He was a Viennese psychologist.
Yeah,
it's really nice. Has really robust ideas, and she says it's like, whenever there's a choice, it's not the choice between what they like and what they don't like. It's the choice between frustrating them or making them weak. That's what the choice is, and the frustration is what helps them grow up. When you tell no to your child and they throw a tantrum, they don't know, it's because they haven't heard no enough times. When they hear no enough times, they begin to relate to it, I'm not the center of the world. I can't get all my desire fulfilled at the expense of everyone else around me, right? And so humanity is the same thing. We're like teenagers, not even teenagers. I think we're like toddlers, right? We're like fighting over toys.
Psycho toddlers, yes.
And this is basically our chance to, yes, say stuff that's a little uncomfortable, but hey, what's the alternative?
I think there's also a price, though, if you say no too much. What does that do to the teenager or the toddler?
So the idea is, the point is not to, we're not trying to raise an animal. An animal you tame, right? You give them a
Yes.
carrot when they do something good, you give them the stick when they do something bad, and then the animal learns and it chooses the carrot or whatever, the candy, the treat, right, over the stick. We're trying to raise a human. A human is someone who can make choices. So it's about creating, values and giving them a higher goal to aspire to. And that's something that animals don't have. Animals don't look at the past and look at the future and then compare and right, where am I going to? Animals are not looking for meaning and purpose, but humans do. So, sadly, you cannot live your life like an animal. As much as you try to kind of lower yourself into the, I'm going to go to India and I'm going to just, sit down and under a tree and meditate and breathe less and eat less and talk less. Yeah, you can kind of minimize the ego, but it's not going to stop it from growing. There's something growing here. There's all these cogwheels turning.
Yeah.
So I guess what we always love to hear from our guests is, first of all, what is your feeling about this whole thing? Like, is it crazy? Is it, should we continue to pursue it? What do you think?
I'm intrigued by the idea. I'm very interested in it. And, I know like there were times historically that unity was made to be the reason why things happened that were good for Jews and for the world, and things that happened that were very bad for Jews and for the world. And we're coming up to one of those historical events, Tisha B'Av, the destruction of the temple. So the lack of unity is often given as one of the reasons for that.
The main reason.
Yeah.
The house was destroyed for unfounded hatred, right?
Right.
That's what it is. And it's the same, by the way, hint, it's the same date. First temple, second temple, both were ruined on that date. Also, historically, supposedly the tablets, Moses broke the tablets on that date. Also, a lot of the different terrible afflictions that came to the Jews happened on those days or the Ben HaMetzarim, right? These 3 weeks between the beginning of the siege and then finally the temple falling. That period of time, seems to have like some sort of a meaning. It's almost like someone's trying to say, "Hey, look here, look here, look here," and we'd rather say, "Oh, it's a coincidence,"
Yeah.
whatever, no, yeah, it could be anything, right? And then you read about how the Jews killed each other in Jerusalem before Titus walked in, and he's like, "I can't even take the bay leaf wreath because I didn't do anything. They killed each other. They killed 1 million people of their own people. I'm just here to clean up." And so we've always been our worst enemy.
Yes.
Which brings me to the other thing. So not the hocus pocus stuff that we're talking about, and not the fact that it says that Jews from the word unity, and that we can bring quotes, and I think we quoted in the podcast. We quote people who say, Rav Kook, who says, as the Jews build themselves, the world will be built with them, and when they destroy themselves, the world will be destroyed with them. There's like so many people are like pointing to that point, and we just, give me another story. But I think the very simple essence of being Jewish, right? Growing up in a Jewish family, that quality, everybody's a little bit sometimes too much in your face and in your business, and kind of like it's almost like it's built into the fabric of what makes this group of people who they are, right? It's those holidays with noisy and everybody's there, everybody knows everything about everyone, and you call it gossip, but it's a natural tendency to just, right, share this information, move things through the system. And you can see that when Jews apply that, you get things like social networks, right? It's not a coincidence, right? You have Jews in those positions. You get media networks, you get financial systems, you get all those hubs in humanity that are in charge of exactly taking stuff and distributing all over. And so if we do it well, it's great. If we serve our own ego in the process, that's when things get, right, go bad.
So how do you convince people that, like we said, are so different, comprised of so many differences? how do you convince them that unity is the key?
Well, it's hard. What's the what are the voices that you see on social media, on Twitter, for example? You know, what are the camps?
You know, in Judaism,
Just in the anti-Semitism conversation that you see going on. What are the camps?
so I would say that right now I see like a progressive version, which is more victimhood for Jews. And you can't say that Jews did anything to cause any of the bad outcomes they're experiencing. It's all because of, you know, this bad other. And then there
Let's
are
call that
people,
group one.
yeah, group one. And then there
Okay.
are people who take a little bit of responsibility and say there is something that we can do, and we're not victims, or at least not all the time. And that, you know, we really need to look at things. And that group will say, group number two will also say that not everything is anti-Semitism. You can talk about George Soros and not like what he does and not be anti-Semitic. The first
Right.
group will jump to say that everything is anti-Semitism.
Seems like group one is probably way bigger than group two.
Yes.
I think it's louder. I don't know if it's bigger. I think it's louder.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at any phenomenon, you probably notice it's like 80-20, right? You have like 80% silent, probably you have 20% making 80% of the noise, right? So usually we're all focusing on this group that makes the most noise.
But there's probably more Jews who say that the victimhood thing versus saying, no, we're responsible for why everyone hates us. But okay, that's two groups. Are there others?
I mean, I think they're the biggest group actually is the group that's in the middle and unconcerned with it.
Indifferent.
Okay, that's a huge problem as well. Let's put that on the side because, wow. Okay, so yeah, that's scary because the whole house will be burning and they won't even move.
Exactly, they don't smell it.
Yeah.
don't feel
So on the first group is the one I'm most interested in. I think for where something might be able to. Well, let's just analyze it for a minute. That's the group that says, you know, you're hating on us, so you have a problem that you need to fix. So I guess my question is, right, and so let's say it's a bunch of Jews who are pointing at the anti-Semites, saying, you know, change your ways. We're going to either legislate you to change your ways, or whatever we're going to do to make you change your ways. So the question is, those group of Jews, where from your observations, where are they getting their story from? Just a feeling, or is it based on something?
Right now, I would say anti-racism that we were talking about before of Kendi and D'Angelo kind of plays a part in it. Sometimes it's like, you know, we have this binary, they're trying to foist a binary on us of black versus white, but then maybe they're also taking it and saying Jew versus non-Jew, with non-Jew, you're always the oppressor, Jew are always the oppressed. And things are only going to change when the oppressor changes.
But hold on, there's also a third group, like a fourth group, Seth, the ones that are in reverse, that say, no, Jews, especially Zionist Jews, are to blame of everything. This is
true.
This is like,
that's part of the progressive camp, though.
It is part of the progressive, but they're saying like, no, if, you know, we're terrible, we should be more, you know, human, more humane, we should be leading that camp, and what's happening there in Israel and the whole Zionism thing is wrong, we're going to go against it. That's how we're going to be, right, the best humanists that we can be by going against what's happening there, as if that attitude will solve anything, which it doesn't. But by the way,
to the question of like, what do we do about this unity situation? I think the first thing is we find other people who are open to it, like you, for example, and we start having this discussion. And hopefully,
I have a T-shirt for it. It says, "See."
What does it say?
Can't see it. What does it say?
It's
a peace sign and a world.
No, it says each one teach one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I think the first group is probably a small group who agree with us or agree with this premise that we agree with, and together, a bunch of sparks. Eventually, we'll have some kind of flame, and hopefully, it'll have some, some good. It will be able to permeate. These ideas will be able to permeate. The second thing is in that group that says that we're the problem. I mean that the oppressor is the problem. We just want to put some education out there, not in a bad way, hopefully in the most entertaining way possible, to just put some we're the most fun place to talk about anti-Semitism on the internet, by the way. Have the most fun you could have talking about anti-Semitism. But we want to look at things in a real sober way. There's a lot of irony in the story. It's a very interesting story, a lot of interesting characters. And if we can try to reframe what's happening, the problem we face, it's like the problem of exercising. It's like I choose every day to suffer a small amount in order to have a good result. It's kind of what you talked about raising kids, Leo. Or I will have a terrible kid at the end because I didn't, or I'll have a really unhealthy body at the end because I didn't choose to make these efforts along the way. And so what we're trying to do is put some kind of story on top of what's happening.
Maybe a question also to Nicole. So you're dealing with domestic violence, and I'm curious. I don't know enough about this, this world, but I'm curious. I'm sure when you're representing maybe someone who's been a victim, I'm guessing more women than men, but I also know that there are men who are victims of that. Yeah. In general, I'm sure that, so there's the part where you have to deal with the oppressor, right? Like you have to create a separation, stop doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
But there's also the part of working with the victim and getting them out of that state as well. And, where's their agency? What can they do about it? They can't always necessarily, physically fight back the other person. It doesn't end with them hitting the other guy back. No, it's about, first of all, reclaiming yourself, kind of rising above the experience and all of that. So
that is my favorite part of the job. That's what you just centered in on.
Do you see patterns?
Do I see patterns? Yes, definitely.
And those people who end up in those abusive relationships?
Yes. Chaotic childhoods, if their parents had been abused or were abusers, foster system, and the overall culture as well, I think plays a role in it. But what really helps them is showing them that they can be empowered, and that they can make these small changes in their lives that will one day add up to a very big change. And it's really beautiful to see. And that is my absolute favorite part of the job. I mean, I like winning in court against the oppressor. That's fun.
Right. No, for sure.
And it's needed. But the best part is helping them reclaim their lives and go on a different path.
What is when did they have the aha moment?
It's very gradual. I don't think it's an aha moment. It's making small changes in their lives, day-to-day lives. And they have room to breathe, without this big oppressor breathing down their necks. And that's what makes the difference for them.
So how do you apply the same Go ahead, Leo.
No, just a question. Like, I wonder if they see that, I want to say it in the right way, because I don't want to, get everybody riled up or anything.
I think we might already get people riled up.
Yeah, that's your specialty anyway.
It's true. It is my specialty. But no, well, I guess the question, so in an abusive relationship, you have the person who does the abusing, but the other person who got into this relationship also plays a role in joining the relationship, right? It's hard for me to believe, like, oh my God, we got married. He was like the best person, and then one day started, being terrible. There's things, and you kind of like, you play into it, they play into it, and then it eventually it kind of escalates, right?
This is, by the way, is like revolutionary. You know,
What?
to actually think that we have responsibility for what happens to us.
I'm not even saying there's necessarily control, but I think it goes back to the idea that we spoke about earlier. We all play a role. We all play a part in everything. In getting it. You can't say that you live in the world. You're a perfect human being, and everybody just picks on you for no reason, right? You kind of you bring yourself into it. Like, yeah, I just went strolling in the demilitarized zone in whatever Ukraine, and I got shot. I want to sue. It's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So I guess I'm trying to not so much the individual victims, but really like us Jews, let's stop being so like, oh, they did it, they picked on me, we did nothing. No, we're all playing a game here. Let's look at it a little bit.
Nicole, if the Jews were your client who are being abused,
yeah, what would you do?
what would you tell them to gradually change their life?
Wow, that's an excellent question. I mean, I always say start with yourself and then move out, from there to try to change the world. You can't try to change the world by focusing on someone else, which is kind of what we try to do. So if the Jews were my client,
By the way, they are.
Thank you. I never thought of it that way.
Pro bono work.
So I mean, I agree with you that the lack of unity is a huge problem, and that we're always focusing on, well, that Jew said that wrong, and this one, doesn't like me because X, Y, and Z, so I don't have to have anything to do with them. I think if you drop all those artificial kind of facades and just be real with people and be human with them and open, that will go a long way. But we have a lot of artificial barriers that we insist on keeping up.
But when you speak to your clients, you tell them things to do. How, what tell us something practical. The client is sitting here with you, like we're going to leave the courthouse, or what is the you're going to put your hand on my shoulder and tell me something, like, what
we're going to leave
me?
the courthouse and your abuser is lurking over there. So we are not going to leave until he leaves. And we're waiting around. We see he's not leaving. So we go ask the sheriff to escort us downstairs. I tell her, don't look at him. Don't say anything. And, we quietly go down the stairs with the sheriff, and she gets in her Uber, and, the sheriff was there all the way. We didn't antagonize him. We were smart about it. We didn't just, go get in the same elevator with him right after.
So phase one is kind of just removing ourselves from a threat.
Yes.
Okay. But now how are we going to change? Okay. That's one part of it. Then
now you're going to get a job, because a lot of times they've lost their jobs because of.
Speak to me in Jewy terms, though, like in our problem. Like, use the same model, but for our problem.
In Jewy terms.
No, I mean like the Jew problem terms. I mean like.
Yeah.
Like,
so now I'm stumped.
No, I liked what you said. Get a job, like be independent, like be together with yourself, right? That's like what you're telling that person. In a way, it's telling the Jews, hey, get together, become independent, not dependent on different things and different attitudes and different. Let's just kind of become one cohesive unit, right?
And what is your skill? What's your talent? What is your fire?
Nice.
What do you bring to the table here?
Good.
Because you don't want to stifle that. That is going to be different for everyone, and that's what's going to make the whole picture beautiful. So feed that.
And then how do I get, okay, I'll do it, Nicole, but how do I get the power to remember to do it each day? How do I have the strength to carry on with this?
Keep at it. You don't want to get stuff.
Yeah, that's the hard work part. That's Do you
How
tell
can you
your
help
kid
me?
no, or
Well, I think this is the part I think where having many of us helps, because we
Mhm.
can help pick each other up, right? When you go, I mean, it's hard.
if we
I,
do
I
it
re-
right, yes.
it's hard to go in when you go to a Jewish family event. It's hard to be just sitting sulking in the corner. So always someone's going to be some uncle telling jokes and some guy giving you a l'chaim and someone to dance and chat you up. It's always right.
Yeah.
Naturally doing this kind of this bubbling thing, and I think this is what we can do. We can help each other. We can remind each other what this work is about. It's not about going against the others. First, getting this family back together, kind of like,
Yeah.
what do you say?
I say that that's beautiful. I like that idea. Um, but it is, we have our work cut out for us. Have you heard the
Yeah.
joke about how many synagogues does one Jew need on a deserted island?
Of course.
One that he goes to, one that he'll never step foot in.
Exactly. There were 2 Jews left in Iran after after the revolution. Everybody
Or Afghanistan?
no, I think in Iran.
I really think it was Afghanistan, though, because I think I know what you're going to say.
It's possible. I can look it up. Maybe one of the astute listeners will do it. But they were like it's close to like the tomb of Esther or something. They were like trying to get the riches off of that. So there was 2 of them left, kind of living very simple lives. And but they had 2 synagogues. They literally didn't go. They had a fight. These the last 2 Jews, and they were fighting. So yeah, we have that quality.
It's similar to the Afghanistan story. So apparently there were 2 Jews left in Afghanistan. They were older, and they were both in jail, and their Taliban jailers let them out because they were so sick of hearing them argue all the time.
It's great. I told Seth just last week they translated a piece of like a relic they found in Jerusalem. They keep digging. So they found something from like 2,000 years ago, or maybe more. No, even more, like 2,500 years ago. And it was written in like a Proto-Canaanite language. So it's hard to decipher. And eventually the professor deciphered it, and it was like basically a series of curses against the mayor. We hate you. Why don't you die already? Basically, that was found in the middle of a temple in Jerusalem.
Oh, I'd love to see that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, look it up. It's it just means that it won't go away. We have to make it go away consciously. And I think what I again, the feeling I'm leaving with always is like, okay, we have to just try to add a little bit of that to what we're doing. Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're suing an anti-Semite, you're protesting anti-Semite, you're trying to ignore the anti-Semitism, whatever you're doing, just to add a little bit of that quality. Find another Jew, hug him. Even if you guys disagree about everything, which is probably if you spoke long enough, it's probably the case.
You just made me think of something interesting, though. Even the quality of arguing that is so very prevalent amongst Jews of all different stripes. That's a good quality. That helped us arrive to a lot of truths.
You have to.
But it's when we distort it and it becomes a tool for disunity, that's when it goes awry.
So Nicole, what is? Oh, you had a question, Seth? Because I was
I had a conclusion based on what you just said. Yeah, so we're expecting to speak to people who have a lot of different opinions or different lifestyles than us, but unity doesn't mean that everyone's just going to agree with me. Although it would be great if they did, but maybe, but to have a rich and amazing life, like a rich and amazing piece of music or any sports team or any theater, there's no great story where like he woke up, had a great life, no problems, and died in his sleep. But if we have some great story with incredible characters and tons of drama, but we can hold each other in this bubble of love together and give all of the pieces the freedom of expression and individuality within that bubble of love. And if we can at least start it with our small ragtag bunch of people, we're looking at a possibility for an incredible life for everyone. No limit to how good it could possibly be. And so our hope is that even though this is a tiny effort we're making together, talking to you on Sunday morning, but hopefully we can connect enough of these incredible, unique, and different pieces together under this, in that bubble, that we realize that we have to connect, that hopefully we hit some kind of critical mass, or hopefully the conversations together between us will ripple, and the energy that's coming in will be able to absorb it correctly and use it for something good.
So that's beautiful.
As we close, what's your wish for the Jewish people? I think I like to ask that sometimes.
My number one wish for the Jewish people, that we would finally learn our lessons. We're fighting the same battles that we fought in the very beginning.
Amen to that. we can say amen, right, Seth?
Yeah.
You can say amen.
Okay, good. All right, so hopefully we learn our lessons, and this has been a wonderful conversation with Nicole here. Thank you so much for coming on to the Jew Function. Obviously, if you're watching, I don't need to tell you to like us and subscribe and share and all the rest of it, and comment. And if you want to be a guest, let us know. We'd love to have you here in the Jew Function. Of course, Nicole, you're not part of family, you're part of the circle. That's it, you're stuck with us.
Thank you.
And if you come to Israel, definitely let me know. And I hope that it inspired someone out there to add unity to their lives. Hopefully. And that's it, I guess. This is the Jew Function. Seth, thank you. Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.